Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us. Today's Bible study is titled, Christlike Servanthood. In a world that celebrates status, influence, and personal success, God's Word presents a completely different picture of true greatness. Through Paul's letters, we'll discover what it means to have the mind of Christ and why genuine Christian leadership begins with humble service. Stay with me, because the example Jesus gives is not only inspiring, it has the power to transform our daily lives. Let's begin. Read 1 Corinthians 4:1-2. What does this passage teach about the correct view one must have about human leaders? In 1 Corinthians 3:1-4, Paul hints that cliques result from a lack of spiritual maturity. However, before addressing this topic, he affirms, we have the mind of Christ in 1 Corinthians 2:16. This phrase likely refers to Christ's way of thinking and acting. In other words, the believer has the mind of Christ when he thinks and acts like Christ. Putting this mind into practice in every area of life is not always easy, is it? In the Greco-Roman world, there was intense competition among political figures, philosophers, thinkers, and religious leaders. The longing for cultural approval apparently led the church in Corinth to follow secular standards. This may also be a danger for the church today. Now read Philippians 2:5-8. How does this passage help us understand the phrase, the mind of Christ? Just as divisions existed in Corinth, they were also taking place in the church at Philippi, although perhaps to a lesser degree. Philippians 2:1-8 teaches that Christ-like servanthood requires dying to self and to selfish ambition. Instead, we are called to seek the good of others above ourselves, just as Jesus did. This is exactly what Paul meant by the phrase, servants of Christ, in 1 Corinthians 4:1. The expression conveys the idea of serving Christ as his assistants or subordinates. A correct understanding of Christian leadership is built upon Christ's own example. Paul also describes these servants as stewards in 1 Corinthians 4:1-2. A steward is someone entrusted with managing the property of another. Everything we possess ultimately belongs to Christ, and we are simply faithful caretakers of what he has placed in our hands. As we reflect on these truths, we are invited to prayerfully dwell on the message of Philippians 2:5-8. How do we truly grasp what this passage tells us about God's self-denying love for us? And why must we also die to self so that, within our own sphere of influence, we can reflect and emulate that same love? These are questions worth bringing before the Lord in prayer. May we ask him each day to give us the mind of Christ, to shape our hearts with humility, and to help us become faithful servants and trustworthy stewards of everything he has entrusted to us. Today's lesson reminds us that true Christian greatness is not measured by position, recognition, or influence. It is measured by humble service, faithful stewardship, and a willingness to put Christ and others before ourselves. Jesus demonstrated the perfect example of self-denying love, and Paul calls every believer to adopt that same mindset. In what practical way can you demonstrate the mind of Christ through humble service this week? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. If today's lesson encouraged you, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs this message, and subscribe for more Christ-centered Bible studies every day. Thank you for watching, and may God richly bless you.